focus on hitting your goals in every area of your business. Remember, the universe rewards the bold. A leader has to take the risks. Welcome to Wealth on the Beach podcast. My name is Daniel Alonzo, and as always, I'm bringing you some of the greatest minds in the world. We're talking business, we're talking money, we're talking health and wealth. And today we get the privilege and honor to talk to the awesome Shane Sams. And, he talks a lot about this thing called the Flip Your Life Blueprint. And it's really so that you can kind of get on the right track to financial freedom, quit your dang job already, and gain control of your time using business. And his forte is in the online business area. And excited to have you, Shane. What the heck is all this flip stuff you're talking about, man?
It's funny, man. You know, when the name Flipped Lifestyle came kind of as I don't want to say it was a joke, but it was kind of an accident. My wife and I used to be school teachers. I'll tell you more about that. And we ended up quitting our job and making money online and replacing our income and doing all that stuff. And when we quit our jobs back in 2013, nobody got it. I'm from a small rural town in Southeast Kentucky. I was a social studies teacher. My wife was a librarian. You just don't quit, quote unquote, good jobs right in the middle of the school year like that. It got so bad. I went out to visit my wife's grandpa one time, and he shook my hand when we were leaving, and he slipped me a $20 bill. And I looked up at him, and he said, "Son, I know you're not working anymore. There's some gas money to get you home." And I'm like, "I made more money last month than I did last year, Grandpa." You know. And then when we started helping people make money online, my mom got me cornered in her kitchen, and she's a Southern mama, man. And she was mad at me. And she said, "Shane Sams, this is so irresponsible. I can't believe that you quit your job. You've got babies. You've got a wife. You got to take care of your family. You have flipped out. You have lost your mind." And I said, "I think I just figured out the name of my podcast. We're going to call this the Flipped Lifestyle, because we live opposite the world, man. We put family first. We put ourselves first. We put our kids and each other on the calendar first. And that's just so opposite of what the world teaches us. And that's what we do now, man. You know, for the past, 7 years, I've been helping family-focused entrepreneurs find and use their God-given talents to start, build, and grow membership sites online, because that's what we believe is the best way for a real family to make a living on the internet, is to go out, find 100 people to give you $50 a month, make $60,000 a year, find 200 people, you make 120. And that's a good living for a lot of people in America. So, man, that's where Flipped Lifestyle came from. That's why we call it. It's not flip flops. It's flipped upside down, man, opposite of the world. So
That's fantastic, man. I mean, I love to hear about people that quit their jobs, take a risk, and go for something, man. And, at least you had the guts to try, man. At least you had the guts to get after something and get out of the average and ordinary lifestyle that everybody in the world, they live, man. And we're going to dive really deep into this today, Shane. But first, I want to kind of take you a little bit back. I like to get to know people and kind of like where they came from. And I really want to know kind of what were you like as a child, good kid, bad kid, got in trouble. Tell me about some of those stories, man.
I wouldn't say I was a bad kid, but I would say I was on the mischievous side. I was not, growing up, I was always a little bit of a rebel. Like I remember a long time ago, my mom would take me with her shopping, and we would go to like J.C. Penney's, and I would go back in the dressing room with her. And I remember being a little kid and crawling around on the ground, and those tags underneath the furniture that say like "Do not remove." Like I could just remember one day I've discovered that inside of the J.C. Penney dressing room. And I ripped it off, and I was like, I wonder if all these other stools have this. And I was just crawling around looking. I was just looking to break the mold, man, looking to tear the labels off. And, growing up, I was an athlete. I played football. And, and I was never a great student, but I always found school kind of easy and boring. And I realized early on I could cram and pass the tests. So I didn't have to do all the homework. I didn't have to do those things. And, man, I drove my mom and dad crazy. But I graduated barely. I got just enough of a GPA to let me in the community college to get me into the college, right? And it's hilarious, man, because when I became a school teacher, man, I bet some of my old teachers were rolling over in their grave when they saw Shane Sams going into the classroom and getting in, in front of a bunch of students to mold young minds into the future. But that's kind of how I was
I
growing up.
love
I was
that.
always pushing boundaries, man. You know what
I,
I'm saying?
I love that you said that, because I was just talking to somebody the other day, and it's amazing. One of my first group presentations, I'm in financial services, and I got my license. I'm 21 years old. Just you described me perfectly. I mean,
Right.
I was the bad kid, well, not the, you know what I'm saying. I mean, I
Yeah,
got
yeah, yeah.
bad grades.
Wasn't the
I,
model
I,
student they wanted you to be,
I
basically.
was not going to be a teacher one day, me
Yeah.
personally. And all of a sudden, I found myself giving group presentations, teaching teachers about money and teaching
Hmm.
about insurances and investments and retirement accounts and all this kind of stuff. And so it was kind of a cool little thing. What did your parents do for a living? Like, did you grow up poor, middle class, rich?
I would definitely say through the 80s into the middle of the 90s, we were lower middle class. You know what I'm saying? We had everything we needed, but we were definitely not wealthy. We were driving cars that were 10, 15 years old, things like that. My dad was an insurance agent. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. So I'd say the late 90s, things got a little better. I'd say we stepped up into that middle class and we kind of started seeing a little bit more success and things like that. But it was definitely a blue collar environment. It was definitely a get up, go to work. You do your 9 to 5 or your 9 to 7, whatever it takes. You go out and you bring home your bacon and that's it. You just kind of got that nice, what is it called? The American dream, 2.2 cars, 2.2 kid kind of lifestyle. And I don't remember, all my brothers, they were blue collar guys, hardworking guys. The grandparents were policemen and the people next to us were coal miners. And that's kind of the environment that I come from. I mean, Southeast Kentucky. The most famous businessman I knew about was Colonel Sanders, because we're in the same town as the first Kentucky Fried Chicken. So that's the only thing I really knew about entrepreneurship, man, right? Was the Colonel. So
I
that's kind
love
of
that.
my background, man, but it gave me that small town kind of mentality, like, I mean, we did work hard. We did know those things. And when I was able to apply it to something else, it was cool to have those small town hardworking values to apply over on the business side, on the entrepreneurship side.
Yeah, my father, I mean, my brother-in-law, his father was one of the first Kentucky Fried Chicken franchise owners.
Oh, get out of here,
So
man.
yeah, no, so yeah, Kentucky Fried Chicken. My brother-in-law, when he was a little kid, I mean, he has a picture in his office of him and the Colonel when
That's
he was just
amazing.
5 years old or
They
something like
say that
that.
guy was mean as a snake, man. He used to like threaten people if they didn't get their checks in on time. He'd come take those pots so they couldn't cook any more chicken, man. He was hard. He was
Wow.
hard on his franchisees to make
Oh
sure, or if
yeah.
they tried to change his recipe, he would just be like, "Nope, you're done. I'm out. We're making chicken the Colonel's way, or we're not making it at all."
I love you, man. I love it. I love it. It's just, I think about entrepreneurship because you didn't think about entrepreneurship in the beginning, right? I mean, this was something that, you're just going along, kind of doing your life and, making an average wage as a school teacher and kind of doing your thing. And then all of a sudden, bam, what happened, man?
Yeah, I was on the railroad track. I mean, my wife, she was a librarian. I was a social studies teacher and a football coach, and we were on that railroad track to retirement. We had a good life. I mean, we had the 2.2 cars, 2.2 kids, above ground pool, all that. We were living it up, man. Nice neighborhood. And we had a paycheck, got paid on Friday, it ran out on Thursday, but we got paid every Friday. We kept getting paid. And one day I was doing what a lot of working parents do, Daniel. I was taking my kid to daycare. We had to use daycare. My son was at one facility. He was about 3 years old at the time. My daughter was over at another facility that kept babies because she was under 2. And Jocelyn would take Anna Joe to her daycare center, going one way to her end of the county, and I'd get on my commute and drop Isaac off on the other. And I was trying to get Isaac out of the car one cold winter morning here in Kentucky. And, he had that puffy coat on. I couldn't really get the seatbelt off of his arms. And we were wrestling and fighting. And my son was screaming and crying. And he was so upset. And he just looked at me and said, "Stop, Dad. She scares me." And I paused. And I said, what did you say? And he said, she scares me. And I said, who scares me? And he let me know who it was. And then my son told me that one of the daycare workers was locking him in a bathroom for hours at a time, and turning out the lights in the dark, punishing him for potty training accidents. We would later find out through the newspapers that there was a lot of abuse like this going on in this facility. One child, they just in the paper, it said that a lady was sitting on children with a beanbag chair when they were out of control, and she couldn't get them to calm down. And I'm standing here shocked that this is happening. I don't know how to process it. I mean, my son's only 3 to 4 years old at the time. He's 3.5 years old. And I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't know if he's telling me things correctly. I don't want to like run in and burn down the building and have my facts wrong. And I'll also, at the same time, I've got to be at school. I mean, teaching is a weird job. Like, you are contractually obligated to keep other people's children safe. And I had 30 high school juniors waiting for me in that classroom. So I needed to be at work. I tried to call Jocelyn. I couldn't get a hold of her. I tried to call my boss. Couldn't get a hold of him. And I did the only thing that my brain could handle at that moment. I drove over to my daughter's daycare. There was a lady there that had kept Isaac when he was a baby, and I trusted her explicitly. And I told her, I said, something's going on. I've got to investigate this. I got to figure out what's going on. Can I leave him here? I need to run to work and tell them what's going on so that somebody can watch my class for me. I can't get a hold of anyone. And she said, yeah, Shane, you can, but this facility is only for babies. We are not allowed to keep kids over 2 years old. You have got to come back. And I promised her I would come back. So I got in my car, drove to my school, got another teacher to watch my classroom. And then I went down to find my boss, find my principal, to tell him what happened. My principal was gone that day. There was an interim principal there. She was an older lady that had kind of come out of retirement to help out while they were looking for an assistant principal or something. I told her the exact story that I just told you. And she just leaned back real calm, took her glasses off, set them down on her table. And she looked at me and said, Mr. Sams, is your son in immediate danger right now? I said, well, no, but this is crazy and I've got to go help him and I got to figure this out. Can you give me a sub or watch my class? And just kind of annoyed, she looked at me, Daniel, and said, I can't watch your class today. My agenda is completely packed and it's, the rules. It's after school started. All the subs are out. So I don't have anyone to watch your students. I know your son needs you, but your job needs you too. And you're going to have to handle your personal problems after work. You'll be out of here at 3:30 and you'll probably make it back before they close. So you won't be leaving him there all day. You can't leave. And I was shocked, man. I was just stunned and frozen. And I said, that's unacceptable. What happens if I leave? And she threatened me. She was like, you'll get in trouble. You will get in trouble. You can't just leave your students. And I said, well, I can't just leave my son either. So I left. And man, I was driving home back to Isaac that day. And I looked myself in the mirror and I was mad, man. I was righteously furious. And I wasn't mad at the daycare worker. I wasn't mad at my boss. I was mad at myself. I just realized I had sold myself into like indentured servitude. I had given someone permission to put other things ahead of my family. And the trade-off was a little paycheck and some health insurance. And man, I made a promise to myself right then and there that I was going to find a way to never have to answer anyone again. I was going to find a way to become and stay self-employed and make sure that whenever my family or my son or my daughter or my wife needed me, I would never have to ask permission. I could drop everything on a dime and I would be there for them no matter what. And that's what pushed us off the cliff of entrepreneurship and made us start looking for some way to make our entire living. Now, I was far away from online business at this point. This was 2012. There was no online business back then, I don't think. Nobody really knew what was going on, but
so what'd you do?
I set out on a path to try to find a way to replace my income.
Yeah. What did you do? I mean, like what was that next step? How long did it take for you to get out of your job and to quit your job?
Well, I mean, an old boy from Kentucky goes blue collar first, man. So I looked at my wife and I said, maybe I can be a handyman. Maybe I can go out and fix toilets or fix sinks or something. I don't know what I'll do. Maybe I can get my home inspector's license. I'll do something like that. And my wife quickly reminded me I am not very handy. And she did not want me to go out burning people's houses down, So I went that route. And then it was getting near summertime a couple months later. And I said, what if I mow yards? What if I mow grass, landscaping, stuff like that? And my wife Jocelyn, she's so smart, so much smarter than me, reminded me there's this thing called winter in Kentucky, and you can't mow snow. So there's no way to feed us in the winter. How are we going to do that? You can't just quit your job and go out randomly doing stuff. And, I went down all these rabbit holes, MLMs. I quickly realized I didn't want to go down that route. And all these other different opportunities were just so out of reach because, we're living on, my take home pay was $2,500, man. And so together we made about $5,000. There's no way I could have replaced it with anything like that or had enough money to invest in a business. And then one day in early spring of around 2012, I started downloading podcasts. Now, podcasts weren't like they are today. There was not a ton of them back in 2012. But I did find one podcast in the business category called the Smart Passive Income Podcast with Pat Flynn. And the episode, Pat Flynn is a huge podcaster now. It's one of the biggest podcasts in that category. But back then he was just getting started. And I just so happened, it was a God thing, man. I downloaded the episode where he was telling his story of what happened after he lost his job. And he started a blog, and he realized people were reading his blog. His blog was about passing the architecture licensing exam. So basically, he was just documenting his journey of how he became an architect and how he passed that test. And he realized that people were there. So he started collecting emails, and he built like a small email list. And finally, he took all of his blog posts and all of his resources, and he put them into a single PDF. And it was a study guide for the architecture licensing exam. This was Pat's first digital product. He took the knowledge and wisdom out of his head, of his experience, put it into a digital product, and then he put it out there on the internet. He gets a PayPal button, and he's getting ready to go sell this online. Now, about 2 weeks before I heard this podcast, I was in the car with my wife, Jocelyn, and we were heading out to Muhlenberg County, Kentucky to visit her grandparents. And man, I don't know where this thought came from. I don't know what made me think this, but I looked over at Jocelyn and I said, hey, I wonder if I could get 100 people to give us $50. And she looked over at me and said, what? And I said, think about it. There's 7 billion people on the planet. If I could just get 100 of them to give us $50 every single month, that'd be $5,000 a month, $60,000 a year. We'd replace our income. And she's like, yeah, but how are you going to do that? I said, I don't know, but it sounds right. That's the math works. So there's got to be something I can do.
What you should have said is, you're the smart one, Jocelyn. You need to figure that
exactly
out.
Right.
That's
I
what
could
you
have saved
said.
myself so many headaches, man.
I thought she was the smart one around here, man. All right, so go ahead.
You'll see the smart one gets involved later and helps everything work.
I believe that.
But then when I was listening to this podcast, Pat said, man, I put this out there. It was like $49, maybe $47. You know how the prices go. He goes, I put this PayPal button out there, and I made $9,000 in the first day that I launched this thing, selling a PDF. He emailed it to people when they'd send him the money. And I about flipped that lawnmower upside down, man. I stopped and I just fishtailed that thing, and I jumped off of it to run in the house. And I grabbed Jocelyn. I said, Jocelyn, listen to me. I know how we're going to get 100 people to pay us $50 a month. We're going to sell them emails. I'll never forget the way that came out and how stupid I felt saying that out loud. But I was like, and I said, no, that's not what it's like. Let me tell you exactly how this works. And she said, that's fine. If you can go prove that it works, that sounds somewhat realistic, but I still am not buying it. So months go by, man. And I have failure after failure. I mean, I learned so many lessons. I learned how to build an email list. I learned how to build a website. I learned all these things, but I was just hitting a wall. Like, I just could not figure out how to replicate what these people who were making money online in the knowledge industry were doing. And one night I was about to quit, man. I was so frustrated. I was depressed. You know how you like hit refresh on your numbers all the time to see if you made any money that day, right? And it kept coming up goose egg, 0 every single time. And I went to the bathroom to brush my teeth and get ready for bed. And I just prayed, man. I just said, God, is that Pat Flynn guy full of crap? Because this has to be real. If this guy's doing it, why can't I do it? I'm making the content. I'm putting it out there. I was trying to make money with Google ad clicks at the time, like where people would read your blog post and click an ad. Nothing was working. And I said, man, if God, if this is real, just show me. Like, if it's not real, I will go back and be a teacher. That was what the path I was on. I will stay on this path. But if it is real, show me so that I can go down this path too. And right before I went to bed that night, the last thing I did was hit refresh on my computer to check my stats. And whereas 0 had been there before, there was 11 cents when it refreshed the screen, a dime and a penny. but man, you'd have thought it was $1 million the way I reacted. I started jumping up and down and celebrating, and I flipped it around. I said, Jocelyn, look at this. Look at this. I created something and money came back. This is real. This is how we can get people to pay us and how we can become self-employed. And my wife is always practical, is always reasonable. But this was the first time I'd ever looked sideways at that screen and look back at me and go, wait a minute, I saw the dream kind of spark in her too. And she said, what else can we do? And that's when we started deconstructing, and Jocelyn helped me look at all these other people's businesses. And we realized that we had to create value through these resources. We couldn't just spam up a blog post and hope somebody clicked something. And we launched 2 websites. We created elementarylibrarian.com, which was a site where librarians could come get lesson plans. Librarians have very few resources in the marketplace. They're super lonely because they're the only one in the room, in the building, and they have really tough jobs because they have to teach every grade level every day. So you'll be teaching kindergartners in the morning, and you'll be teaching 5th graders in the afternoon, and you have to prep for every one of those differently. And those are 2-hour preps per day times 5. You're looking 10 hours of work to get 1 day of studying going. So Jocelyn decided to make lesson plans where we would plan your lessons for you every single day. I took what I knew. I was a football coach, so I started selling playbooks, and I created a membership where I could help coaches game plan on Friday nights, do the weightlifting in January, and we made all these resources for them. We start blogging because that's what Pat did. We start podcasting because I like to talk. Jocelyn started the Elementary Librarian podcast. It was riveting. It's just as riveting as it sounds. I started a football coaching podcast. We started building really small audiences. And in August of 2012, we sent an email out that said, hey, if we make lesson plans for you, will you buy it? Jocelyn has had a bunch of people say yes. So she started putting a sales page together. She sends that back out. The first email she sent was to about 250 people. And we made $2,500. We went from 11 cents to $2,500. That was already one of our paychecks. The next month was she said, hey, I'm going to make September for you now. If you want to buy September lesson plans, $3,000. I'll make October for you if you'll do October, $5,000. This continues to grow. And in July of 2013, we ended up making like $15,000. This is already money that I could have never possibly imagined with my background. In August of 2013, we made $36,000 in a single month. And that was when we were like, all right, if we're doing this part-time, what can we do full-time? And on September 27, 2013, in the same office that I had that confrontation with my boss, slid my letter of resignation across the desk, and we've been self-employed ever since. So that's how we got started in online business, man. It was just taking the most negative thing that had ever happened to us and using it as fuel to go to the next level and take the next step.
I love that you say that, Shane, because, and that was a powerful story, by the way. That was incredible. I mean, but I love that you say use the fuel. You know, it's like when people get down, when they get beat up, when things ain't going their way, what they do is they revert to the negative instead of trying to find a solution. Like, you took a negative situation and you ask God to find a dang solution. Like, tell me what to do. Sometimes you just got to get on your knees and go, tell me what to do.
Most of the time you got to get on your knees.
Yeah, you do. And I think it's just, it's powerful. The way that you guys, number one, you guys came together as a partnership, right? In the beginning, she was a little negative. You kind of had to prove to her that something is going to work, which I'm always telling my agents, you know, the easiest way to fix a negative spouse is go make some dang money. Exactly. You know, that fixes a negative spouse every time. And you took that negative situation and you found solutions, and you decided to go for it, you know, to give it everything you had. Now, you could have been a complete failure. It could have been after a year, nothing would have happened. But if you were dedicated and committed to what you believed could happen, doesn't matter how long it takes, man. You do it until the job gets done. So I love that, man. So where did it go from there, man? How did,
Yeah.
as far as the podcast and the website and all the different marketing and like, what does that cost though, by the way, to like somebody that's thinking about doing this or like, well, what kind of marketing budget do you have to kind of convert $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month,
Yeah.
because I know there's formulas to that. So
We had no marketing budget. I mean, we're still primarily organic. I mean, we do use ads sometimes now to kind of add fuel to the fire. But when we started out, man, I was broke. I mean, we had no money for ads, or there were no ads back then. Like you could buy some Google ads and some stuff like that. I mean, there's only two ways that we think you can build an audience. You can roll up your sleeves, you can open your wallet. And our wallet was empty. So we rolled up our sleeves, man, to build we had to get hosting, of course, to host our website. We had to buy some plugins and products and different things like that to, like put a membership wall between your customer and to access your stuff like that. I'd say back then it was about $200 a month we were having to come up with. So I was yard selling every single weekend. I was doing anything I could do to scrounge together money. I had this book I waited in line for like 2 hours in college to be signed by my favorite author, and he was dead at the time. And this was one of my most prized possessions. And I looked at that book and looked it up on eBay, and I realized people were buying it for over $100, and I really needed an email course to learn how to do email marketing. And I sold that book through bitter tears to get enough money to buy that. So, I mean, I was selling everything. We were running out of stuff that wasn't furniture, basically, because I was having so many yard sales, right? But, it could cost us a couple $100 a month. Right now, you can probably run a successful membership site without marketing, or maybe if you wanted to do like $100-200 in ads, somewhere between $300 and $500 a month is what it takes to get the software to actually make it possible. But Jocelyn, man, she was hustling. She was going around to forums all over the internet saying, hey, finding places where elementary librarians were already hanging out. I would lay in bed at night on Twitter and I would type in coach in the search bar. And I was going through profiles looking for people who were standing on a sideline or by a football player or clearly a football coach holding a clipboard, whatever it was. And I would follow them and send them a message. So I built up my audience that way, just totally organically, grassroots. Jocelyn the same way, totally just dropping links back to the blog, starting a Facebook group, engaging with it every single day. And that's how we built that up. And that first list only had a couple hundred people on it, but it was the right people at the right time, and we could serve them in the right way. So you don't need 10,000, 100,000 followers to make an amazing amount of money. I mean, think about this: 1,000 people times $83 a month is $1 million a year. So if you can just find your 1,000 people and you can provide enough value where they'll give you $83 a month, you can get to $1 million like really, really super fast. So I always tell people, don't get caught up in these people who listen, I guarantee you we make more money than most of those people with 500,000 followers on Instagram. Like, it's just true. Those people aren't making a ton of money. It's the people who are hustling, gathering the right tribe and serving the tribe well that are going to make all that money.
Oh,
But dude,
I love that you
ahead.
said that, Shane, because that is, man, so many people are sitting around thinking these influencers make all this money. They look like they make a lot of money,
Yeah.
but they're really not, because it's very difficult it's not like they're getting ads. They might get some free hotel rooms or a free dinner somewhere.
Look at their box of chocolates here and there every once in a while, right?
But they're not making any hardcore revenue.
That's right.
But what I love about what you and Jocelyn did is you rolled up your sleeves, man, and you built relationships, man.
Yes.
You went deep into relationships. You went deep, because I'm telling my agents all the time, like, look, you got to build your social media, but you got to not just build your social media. You got to DM people. You got to build relationships. You got to comment on their stuff.
You got to connect with them somehow, or it's not going to work.
People. That's it. So tell us a little bit about how that connection is how that's so important.
Yeah. Our entire business, we had the memberships at first, and we had passive income at first, and we had you'd get up, you'd work a couple hours, and suddenly you'd have 15 people join your membership, right? It was awesome. It was absolutely amazing. But we realized that to build true retention in your membership, or to build retention, or to build referrals in any kind of network that you're building, like for real estate agents or whoever, there had to be not just a connection with us, but a connection with community. There had to be a feel where they were connected to something bigger than themselves. So we have always called our memberships communities. Like, we want to connect every elementary librarian in the world. I have a website called ushistoryteachers.com. What do US history, how do they feel alone? How can we serve them? How can, not just by handing them a worksheet about Abraham Lincoln, right? But how do I make them feel important? How do I make them feel valued? And how do I make them know that if they do need something, we're the people that they need to come and get the help from? So we're always trying to pour that connection, pour that community inside of everything we do. And the community starts with the leader. Like, I'm the leader of the Flipped Lifestyle community. Jocelyn is the leader of the Flipped Lifestyle community. If we're not transparent, if we're not available, if we're not leading, then that's not going to set the example for everybody else to do the same thing. So when we go into our forums and I see 6 people have answered somebody's question before I could even log in that day, I know in the back of my mind, man, that's what I'm showing up. Now they're showing up, and now they're serving each other. Right. So everything we do is connection in our stuff. But it's not just about the knowledge or the information that you're selling, like on the
Oh, I
internet,
love
basically.
that, man.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Because as an entrepreneur, as a leader, you always have to lead from the front.
Yeah.
You always have to do it first. You always have to take the risk first. You always have to go for it first, and then people will follow. And so whether it be building a traditional business where you have, people that you're seeing them all the time, or an online business, it really is very similar in a lot of ways, because you're still trying to build the community. You're still,
it's all trust.
It's all trust.
Yeah.
And think about it, in this day and age with COVID and all the stuff that's going on in the world, like, let's be honest here, man, we're doing a lot of stuff via Zoom today.
Yes.
So the connection has to bleed through. I mean,
and that's not going to go away just because
it's not
COVID
going away.
eventually goes away, and that's what we realized probably around 2014, about a year into our journey. We had built this business, and it was amazing. I mean, I can't explain how amazing 2014 was in our life. It was just bonkers that we were making money this way, And we had schools, man, all over the country. We had whole school, like Jacksonville School District, sent Jocelyn a message, and they wanted to buy it for every school in their district. So all of a sudden, we're getting like a $10,000 purchase order, and we're like, "What is happening?" Right? This is just these opportunities were seeking us out because we had ranked in SEO and we had done all sorts of cool. And people would hear about us, and they tell the next library over, and then they tell the next library over, and then all of a sudden, the whole school district showing up to join. And it was really cool. It was awesome. We had a product-based business, and it was passive income, and it was awesome. And then one day at church, talking about community again, we were at church. We were in our small group. We were just hanging out. And when we first quit our jobs, everybody looked at us and said, "What are you doing? What is it? What are you? Why would you do that? Like, you're giving up so much." Everybody was freaking out, when we quit our jobs. But sooner or later, those "what are you doing" turned into, "Wait, what are you doing?" Right? And they started leaning in a little bit. And the first person to ever do that was Jocelyn's friend, Lindsay. She came up to Jocelyn after Sunday school one day and said, "Hey, I want to quit my job and homeschool my kids. Do you think I could make money on the internet too?" And I remember standing there, I looked over at Jocelyn. I was like, "Well, yeah, it's not real. I mean, the system is simple. It's not easy, but it's simple." So we showed her how to create digital courses. We showed her how to turn things into recurring revenue. We showed her how to build community. We showed her how to do all these things, got her involved a little bit with what we were doing. And within a couple months, she made enough money where she felt comfortable quitting her job. And she did. And she stayed home. And that was like 7 years ago. She homeschooled her kids. She still does today. So Lindsay quits her job, and we're like, "That's cool. Back to work," right? It was it kind of didn't register at first. It was just good for our friend. And then a few months later, after church again, I was trying to sneak through the back hallway to get to the nursery and beat the line so I could pick up the kids. And I ran into Lindsay's husband, and he comes up to me and goes, "Man, can I talk to you for a minute?" And I said, "Sure, man, I got a minute, but let's walk toward the nursery. I'm trying to beat the line," right? And he goes, "No, I need you to stop and listen to me." So I was like, "Okay." And I noticed he had tears in his eyes. And he said, "Man, I don't think that we have ever thanked you properly for what you did for our family. Our dream was to homeschool our kids, and we're doing that now. We just went on a trip to Florida over Christmas break, and I never could have afforded that on a single salary." But then something else is happening, man. I've always had a dream about being a college professor. I wanted to go back, get my PhD, but I've always felt guilty to borrow the money to go get that. But now we're making enough money where I'm paying for it as I go, and I'm going to be a college professor. And he's a college professor right now today. And he was just, by this time I'm crying, freaking out. And he as we gave me a hug, and he leaned back and just said, "Hey man, this really changed our life. And I just want to thank you for that." So when I got in the car that day on the way home from church, I looked at Jocelyn and said, if what we figured out for us worked for a couple kids from Kentucky, who were just school teachers, and it worked for them, and they do their normal 9 to 5 working parents, whatever, like maybe what we teach could work for other people. And maybe they wouldn't have to go through what I went through when I was trying to duct tape this thing together all by myself. And maybe we could help them get there faster. And that became the initial concept of what flipped lifestyle would become after my mom yelled at me, right? It became this thing where we help working families, real people, find and use their God-given talents and experiences, the wisdom that they already have, to go out and serve other people in their own memberships, in their own communities. Fast forward, I end up reaching out to Pat Flynn and telling him our story, and he has me on his podcast. And right about the same time, we launched Flipped Lifestyle, and he was so gracious and helped us kind of roll that out. And we had like 120 people join our community, like the first week that we opened it up on the first webinar. And man, that thing took off, and we've been, running around the world changing lives ever since, man. So, it just goes to show you, if you just keep putting yourself out there, Daniel, it doesn't matter where you are, what space you're in, just keep putting yourself out there, and the good things will eventually come back.
What a wonderful story from the bottom to the top, and I love to watch people become successful. I love to see people create great lives for themselves. And what a great story to build a great family, to build a great business. And then at the end of the day, because everybody thinks, look, I mean, I've been financially independent for a lot of years now.
Yeah.
But there's nothing that juices me more than helping somebody else win, helping somebody else have success. Because I believe that progress equals happiness. I believe that all of us, I don't care how much money you have, all of us get down and depressed when we're not making progress, man. When you're not using the God-given talent that you're talking about, you're not using it, when you're not getting up and trying to apply yourself, doesn't mean you're always going to be successful. Doesn't mean you're always going to have a win that first time. You're going to suck in the beginning. You're going to have to duct tape shit together, man. You're going to have to make
the goal
things
is
happen,
to
right?
suck less. That's the goal. Just keep sucking less.
The goal is to suck less, man. I love that. But we're all going to not be great at stuff in the beginning. And so we got to allow our efforts to have time to compound. And that's the beauty of what we're seeing right now. We're seeing from 2012 to 2021, a complete amazing business and life, because you stayed the course, man. You didn't give up. You kept, and like you said, you kept putting yourself out there. And so thank you, man, for inspiring me, for inspiring the world, because the world needs more great people like you, Shane, and Jocelyn. And so, man, what an incredible story. So, hey, look, with that said, man, we could talk for a long, long time, but I want to make sure that everybody knows how to get a hold of you, and they're gonna get a hold of you after they follow you, after they hit the subscribe button, after they smash that like button. They're gonna make sure they follow you on all your platforms and everywhere. So give us the little, where you at, man? How do we find you, buddy?
Yeah, man. I mean, the best place to find us is the Flipped Lifestyle Podcast. That's FLIPPED. Every week, I bring real members from my community on the show, and I talk to them about where they're at in their online journey. I help them take next steps. I let everybody else listen in so that they can learn too. Also, I have a podcast called The Shane Sam Show, where I interview amazing entrepreneurs, authors, experts, people like that. So you can check that out. And also, we've got a gift here for anybody that listens to your podcast, Daniel. If you go to flippedlifestyle.com/beachwealth, we have a 30-day free trial for our community, for all of your listeners today. You can come in, you can check it out, you can kick the tires. If you don't like it, if it's not for you, feel free to, you can cancel that at any time. But we're really, really confident that our program is great. for any working family out there that wants to change their life. And if you want to see what we do, it's flippedlifestyle.com/beach wealth. And man, I appreciate you so much. I know for anybody to sit down and hang out with you for an hour is an absolute honor. And I just appreciate your time. And thank you for letting me tell my story here today.
So much fun. All right, everybody. Make sure, again, if you talk to Shane, if you have a conversation, you tell him that you met him through Wealth on the Beach podcast. Thank you, everybody, for watching on YouTube, listening on iTunes or Spotify or Podbean or wherever you found us. We love that we get to be a part of your life. I appreciate you, love you. And with that said, keep dreaming bigger than ever. Get after it. But most importantly, do it now. God bless you. We will see you at the top.